I've closed over 3,000 sales at a 92% success rate. We're going to talk today about my script that I use. Hey guys, welcome back to the Magness Mogul Podcast. My name's Jonah Magness, and I own and operate martial arts studios. I've been able to help some of my friends with the things that have worked best for me, and that's what I'm going to talk about here today. Really quick, before we get into the script, I just want to make a few points of assumptions that I'm making that's already in place for your business. The follow-up and lead nurture process in terms of getting them to show up to their first appointment and how you're doing that process is really going to impact the sale as well as the product. Making sure the product's awesome, that's the most important part. And the sale after that really is easy, and you don't even necessarily need the best sales script if your product is outstanding. After you have the outstanding product, we want to make sure that your process from when they interact with your website become their lead like we talked about last week. We want to make sure that you're reaching out to them and nurturing them through the process, whether it's with automations, manual reach out, or a combination of both like I do. And that process and how smooth it goes and how over communicative you are is what's really going to help your entire sales process. Now for the script. I use a question-based script, and I wish I used one a lot earlier, and I'll repeat that a few times through this, but we're going to go over some of the specific questions or like sorts of questions that I'm asking and why I use a question-based script rather than what I used to use of having myself and my team have to have an entire like one-page thing memorized that we didn't really give any opportunity for the client to talk back and forth with us. One of the reasons that I use a question-based script is because it's a lot easier to let the client talk back to us and allow us to redirect the conversation more easily, as well as they still get to tell their story. So when I ask a question, I can just listen, nod along, and be a good active listener, repeat parts of their story, and then I can just transition into another question, which is much more natural for conversation flow, and that next question will help guide them more and more towards the direction I need them to go during the sale. Our form they fill out when they get signed up with us has a little checklist of what major goals they have for themselves or their student that they're signing up with us. And what that looks like in terms of our first question is something like this. I see you chose communication, respect, and making new friends as key reasons to choosing our program and getting started with us. In what areas at school and at home are they already succeeding at this? It's so great to hear that they're communicating really well at school and they have a couple of friends already that they're really close with. Also, I'm glad that they're being respectful at home, and I can tell that you want a little bit more consistency out of that. That's definitely something that we're going to help with, as well as you're going to see their self-esteem get incredibly boosted, and they'll start making friends in here and at school just by being more confident in themselves and who they are. And how often are you looking to come to classes? That's excellent. Our base program is 2 to 3 times per week, and we also have an elevated elite program that they can come as many times as they want to train. Plus, it unlocks more classes and training opportunities, as well as the more they're here, the more you're going to see that communication, respect, and all the friends they're going to make by the different classes that they're in kind of happen a lot more quickly. And so if that's something you're interested in, I'd love to talk to you about those opportunities. Here I take startup packages, ABC, and then I go into the actual sales process and stuff like that. Now, these are just 3 of the questions that are on our script. Everything I really emphasize about having a question-based script is based on their responses. So they filled out communication, respect, and making new friends, and I asked them how they're already killing it at that. It's because I want the parents to acknowledge with me that their kids are somewhere along the spectrum of those skills that they want them to improve upon, not just acquire for the first time. And when I'm making the sale, I just reference back to those points over and over and over again. Plus, I can tie in our other life skills or other character traits that I know they're going to see benefit their kid in the long run as they're coming through our program. And kind of like with the 2 to 3 classes with the unlimited training, every time I talk with a parent or just the student that wants to sign themselves up, I'm making sure that I give them 2 options and ask them which one they want to do. I don't say, does that sound good? Because that's a yes or no question. And I'm not really big on having that open-endedness because that can be a hard stop to the conversation. And I want the conversation to keep going. So I try and make it where they're getting multiple options and they're picking one of those options. So I'm kind of setting the parameters like a multiple choice test. And if the parents end up getting really open with you on our question list, there are questions for if we hear like a bad report for behavior at school, we hear something about getting bullied, and how to make sure we steer it more into that realm. So it actually is the sincerity of like, we do care, because I do and my team does. We do care about helping the kids stop bullying as soon as possible. And that's something that I'd even offer them right after classes. Sit them down before they leave and just give them 1 or 2 tools that they can implement right away at school, right away at their other sports to make sure that bullying gets stopped, or that they're having a hard time at work or having a hard time in school with academics. We have questions that help guide that conversation, still getting to the end point of talking about the sale, but we let them know that we have opportunities and we can give ample amount of time to communicate one-on-one with them and the student if it's not themselves signing up, and making them feel validated in all this process and that we've done this before and our expertise will help them be more successful. And why I always start with reading the goals and then stating that I read the goals, like communication, respect, and making friends, is because I want them to know they didn't fill out the paper for nothing. I want them to understand that they filled it out. I read through it before I came over and talked to them, so I have an understanding of what they're here for and why they walked into the building. Going back to why I reference their goals and ask about them in a way assuming that they're already successful in communication to some degree, in respect to some level, they have some friends, but they're trying to get them to make more friends, is because I never want to come back to the parent and look right back at the student and assert that they don't have the skill at all, and that's why they're coming to us the first time. I want to hear them or their parents talk about how they're already being successful, and that's really going to help the parent, the family understand that we can see the value in what they're already accomplishing, and we're just here to help level that up 10 times over. Now, one of the key parts of our script actually has to do with the classes that are being taught, and we don't actually go over to the parent to talk about pricing. When they walk in, we'll highlight a schedule, we'll give it to them, go over the classes, but then we'll say, hey, we're getting everything written down, and then we'll bring it over to you. Feel free, have a seat, we'll come to you, make it as easy as possible. And what that allows for is in the first 5 to 10 minutes of class, before we even walked over, our team on the floor is really good about highlighting the new person, celebrating their successes really, really quickly, so that they're getting highlighted and the parents hearing their kid's name on the floor, or the person that I'm going to sell to after class has already been highlighted in the first 10 minutes. And we constantly are doing that to make them understand that we're paying attention to everybody in the class, but even though they're new, they're going to be able to keep up the entire time. And that's super important, because if you're brand new and you're coming in and everybody else is doing all the same stuff, you feel really overwhelmed and really shy about it. So this allows for them to feel like they are doing the right things and they're going to be more successful. The other thing I always ask for, either during the nurturing process, if we're communicating back and forth a lot before the first appointment, or right after they come in, is I tell the story about how I got to train with my best friend or how I got to train with my dad. And then I ask them if they have one person they want to bring that they can think of off the top of their head. And I tell them to bring them to their next class, so that way they can watch them get their first belt given to them and be part of that whole experience. And then that also ties into me getting another student, of course. And that always will allow the more people that train together with their friends, with their family, definitely promotes the success in reaching their end goals of like either getting their black belt or getting in shape or whatever their goals are, if they have that partner for accountability and to come along and experience it with. Remember, these are just 3 questions on a list of like 10 to 12 that I have on a paper for my staff and myself, and it's all based around letting the person in front of us, the decision maker, talk a majority of the time and kind of convince themselves on the sale. What that allows for is we just have to steer the conversation and let them understand that they're already being successful in some areas, and we're going to help them grow in success in those areas and accomplish new goals right alongside with it. And that's been really helpful for us, and having questions to guide us rather than a fixed script makes it feel a lot more conversational, a lot less robotic for my team. And it definitely so far has proved to be easier to train on using a question-based script. So if you have someone in your life that you want to see close one more sale for every couple of leads that walk in the door, send them this video, as well as you guys can subscribe for more and check out the rest of the videos in my playlist.